This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before I get started here today, I want to make sure I remind you guys, as always, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top of when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could please as well, give us a 5-star rating, write a nice review. Be very appreciated, very helpful. I'll see what you guys like, what you guys dislike, those you can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so you can find us there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. And it seems like there will have to be some important discussions being had in the Washington front office very soon, because they could soon be out of all their sponsors. So not early, because you guys are hearing this on Friday, so not Thursday, but I think it was Wednesday. There's an article that came out from ESPN talking about investors and shareholders worth a combined $620 billion, with a B, not an M, billion, are calling on Nike, FedEx, and PepsiCo to sever ties with the Washington football team unless the team changes its name, according to a report by Adweek. So that came out, and you were like, whoa, okay. Because I know, as we were talking about with some of the protests and stuff, like, awareness is great, but, like, action is what's necessary. And one of the biggest ways you can affect things is with money, whether you're giving it or taking it away. And this, if it were to go through, would be a very big blow. Because, I mean, that's a lot of money and a lot of sponsorships, a lot of big name sponsorship being taken away from the Washington football team. And again, dollars cause change. That's a bar. I mean, that was off the top too. I didn't even prepare that. But yeah. So what I mean by that is that once you either give money towards something or take away money from something, that usually causes some sort of change. If when people saw, if people say they were going to boycott something, they were like, oh, we didn't like what you said on this, that, and the third, we're going to boycott you. And now all of a sudden your business takes a hit. All right, that might cause you to change the course of action. Or if you're seeing all right, we want to build something, we want to make something great, but we don't have the funds for it. You get a investment. All right, now you can create something bigger than what you had originally had planned. So it goes both ways. But in this case, in order to get some change from the Washington, Dan Snyder or whoever, well, mainly Dan Snyder, he's the owner, you need to affect him monetarily. Just saying oh, we're not going to show up, we're mad at you, blah, blah, blah. That stuff's not going to really do anything. You need to affect him in the pockets. And this is the start of that. And then it didn't stop there, it went even further. So FedEx, which has a naming rights to the stadium in which the Washington football team plays, made a request Thursday that the team change its nickname. We have communicated to the team in Washington our request that they change the team name, FedEx said in a statement obtained by ESPN. FedEx paid $205 million to Washington for the naming rights to the stadium in 1998 in a deal that runs through 2025. Frederick Smith, the chairman, CEO, and president of FedEx Corp., also owns a minority stake in the Washington football team. Team owner Dan Snyder has been under renewed pressure to change the name, with protesters reportedly targeting the team sponsors, as we just talked about with Adweek. FedEx, Nike, and PepsiCo each received letters signed by 87 investment firms and shareholders worth combined $620 billion, asking the companies to sever ties with the Washington. On Thursday night, Nike also appeared to remove all Washington gear from its online store. The other 31 teams were listed, and a search for the team name as it is currently came up with no results. Nike did not immediately respond to an email message seeking comment. In 2014, the Oneida Tribe of Indians of Wisconsin asked FedEx shareholders to reconsider the naming rights agreement, but shareholders voted to stick with the company officials and continue the business relationship, according to Memphis Business Journal. Snyder has been under more pressure in recent weeks to change the team name given the social climate following the death of George Floyd in Minnesota. Native American leaders want Snyder to change the name, which the franchise has used since 1933. In the past, groups protested the name and tried to win in court. Unfortunately, that did not go over well. But yeah, so this is something that obviously was coming. It's something that's been coming for years. People have been trying to get Washington to change their team name for years, but there was a renewed effort in that, obviously, with the situation we're all in. Well, not all of us, but the situation we're in as a country, where like a lot of people are being like, all right, now is the time, we think, to make the real change. Like you see, like that's what I'm saying. You're seeing things like, NFL's lucky. I'm not going to talk about this today because it's foolish. But you're talking about, you see like the NFL, they're changing the national anthem for week 1. They're going to, instead of doing the Star Spangled Banner, they're going to do Lift Every Voice. You see, like I said, you've seen like the NBA changing what you can put on the back of your jerseys, or writing Black Lives Matter on the courts. You're seeing different companies, different organizations put out statements, support different initiatives, give money to certain things that hadn't really been happening up until recently. Not that, again, this is a new issue, as was evident with the whole Kaepernick thing 4 years ago. But it just seems now, for whatever reason, more people are up in arms about it than just the black people. And there are others, obviously they're not the only people out there. Weren't the only people out there at the protest years ago, but just like black people and people that support them, other people of color, white people, whoever. But now it just seems like everybody's like, yeah, we're kind of in a bad spot, so we need to make some changes. And so this was eventually going to come up again, because I mean they've been trying to get this team name changed for years at this point. And I think, like I'm saying, the biggest change is with money, and this directly could affect Dan Snyder and the Washington football team. Like I'm saying, you pull Nike, who is like the NFL sponsor in terms of like jerseys and everything. You pull all their stuff off their online store, so you can't go buy any Washington gear, no jerseys, no hats, no T-shirts, sweatshirts, none of that. So then, all right, they're losing money there. Then, if there's a way that FedEx can get out of this contract, and now you gotta find a new sponsor for their or naming partner for like the stadium. And at this point, I mean, not to say no one's going to take it, but who would take it in this climate? Like, you're just, whatever company is involved with that, unless it's like a singular person that's just like, hey, I want to have my name on a stadium. Like, if it's a company like that company's going to get blasted in the media or in social media or just the news and everything for the foreseeable future because of the climate we're in. That's just it shouldn't be acceptable anyhow, but it's even more acceptable now. Like everybody's on your head when you say something out of line at this point. Like, you can't, like I said, you need to make sure you're saying the right thing, double check, triple check, get somebody to read it over, do whatever you have to do. Because if you come out and say the wrong thing now, people aren't trying to hear it. Because like, all right, you should know this isn't like a big, it shouldn't be a hard issue. It's a very black and white issue, in my opinion, in terms of what's going on, even with this name. Like, if people that it directly is reflecting think it's offensive, then it's offensive. It doesn't matter if you meant it to be offensive. It doesn't, well, I mean, they probably did. But it doesn't matter if, like, you weren't the one that came up with the name. Doesn't matter if you were the one that changed the name or whatever. Just, it's offensive. And if people find it offensive, then you can't be mad at them for finding something offensive. You can't react. You don't know. I mean, you can't regulate how people react to things. Everyone reacts to things differently. Some people maybe don't mind it. Some people are overly offended by it. And that's, like I said, I think they should be, but that's their own right. And with that being said, if people find it offensive, and not just that group of people in this country, but other people are just like, we don't need this to be the name anymore. Like, clearly we're past this. Then I think it's time. But as I think Dan Snyder said it was 2013 or 2014, I believe it was. I'm trying to find the tweet from, where was it? I think it was like My Football Update. He was basically saying that, like, Dan Snyder was saying that he was never going to change the team name. More or less that he was like, it doesn't matter what happens. Like the team name is always going to be the team name. Like it doesn't matter what you do. Okay, yeah. So this is from My Sports Update on Twitter. The owner Dan Snyder in 2013 on changing the team name. Will never change the name. It's that simple. Never. You can use caps. So again, he has no desire to change the name. So then, if all the sponsors are pulling out, then that leaves two options. Either you change the name, which, I mean, shouldn't be that hard. Change it to like the Warriors, or I guess if you want to keep it the R logo, like the Rebels. If you want to get really supportive of the movement on that, which, I mean, Dan Snyder won't. But if you wanted to, you could go like you could honor like Tuskegee Airmen to go like Red Tails, like something like you could. There's enough creative people, I think, in the organization to be like, all right, we can figure out a name change. So either you can do that, or you can force Dan Snyder to sell the team, because that's kind of what happened with the Donald Sterling thing. That was a little bit different, but it was like they forced his hand. Like they were like, no, you're going to have to sell the team, and then he sold the team. Steve Ballmer got it. Everyone's been happy since, but it was just like, we can't have you here. It's going to ruin. It's going to bring down the value of the NBA and then of this team and everything if we keep you around any longer. So I think, and I mean, if you're a fan of that team, you've kind of been wanting. You're over Dan Snyder at this point. You've wanted him out for years. He hasn't really done anything that good since for years now. He's just signed big time free agents that have amounted to nothing. He hasn't really fixed the field. The field is very shoddy. Could be renovated, could be updated. Hasn't done it. As it it took forever to fire the GM that was also in charge of, again, picking all these players and drafting these guys and signing these guys that haven't really worked out. The team hasn't been that relevant since RG3, honestly. I guess his rookie year, and since then they kind of been. I mean, I guess Kirk Cousins took them to the playoffs, I think, one time, so that's like borderline relevant. But for most of my lifetime, Washington's been like a whatever team. It's like, all right, like they might have a one random good year, but no one's ever really like, this is the year Washington's going to do something. No one really says that. At least now. So yeah, so I'm saying like those are the options you kind of have, because if people are going to keep pulling money and you're going to lose investors and lose sponsorships and stuff, like that's going to hurt a lot more than just fans saying we're not going to show up to games. Like that's going to really hurt. So then, like I said, Dan Snyder has an option. He can just take a massive hit on this team that he owns, or, he can take a massive hit, do nothing. He could change the name, which is the simplest solution. I mean, it's going to take a little while to get like all the merchandise and stuff and the logo and stuff figured out. But like I said, if you just want to keep the R, just figure out a name with R. I mean, there's a lot of words in the dictionary that start with the letter R, so that shouldn't be that hard. Or just sell the team. If you're like that mad and that staunch and just like, I'm not changing this team name, I don't care, just sell the team. Like, it's not that complicated. Especially when I feel like, when you think, I understand like the logic. I mean, this more so than like some of the other arguments people have made about like the things that are being changed or torn down and like how it ruins like history or whatever. Like you can go to Google, go to a library, or well, no one's going to a library, but like go on the internet and look these things up or look up the history of things that you don't need a statue for. That's not my point. With sports specifically, the name I feel like is less important than the players. Like just because, and I think Jeannie Buss had a good point about this. Funny enough, she had a tweet where she was saying, It is human beings who created the memories and won the games, not a logo or a team name. A changing name will not alter what Art Monk, Dexter Manley, Darryl Green, Doug Williams, etc. means to the fans. And I think that's a good point. Like, I understand like the concept is also kind of when you think about teams like changing jerseys or whatever. You're like, oh, I like the traditional. I don't want to change like tradition, history, all that fun stuff. But at the same time, it's like the players are the stuff that you remember. Obviously, you remember cool jerseys and stuff, but like, it's not going to be like, oh, all of the Washington football team's history is erased if they change the name. Like, that's not going to happen. People are still going to remember the glory days, the Joe Gibbs era. Who was it? Like John Riggins, like Doug Williams, all those guys. Like the people that people are fans of and that made them become fans of the team are still going to be there. and they're still going to be remembered, and it's still going to be etched in people's brains. That's not going to change just because the name changed. Like, that doesn't matter. And I feel like that's kind of the whole point is that, like, the name, if it's offensive, just change the name. Like, it's not, there's not so much tied to the name. Like, you see teams move and change the name all the time. But obviously, it's a little different because they're not moving. But it's like, it's not like you've never seen teams move and change names before, and it'd be like no big deal. Like, it happens. Even the Houston, they were once the Oilers, they moved, and now they're the Texans. And no one is like, oh, that up in arms about it. It's just like, hey, okay, it's fine. I'm pretty sure, yeah, Houston Oilers are now the Titans, I think. I'm pretty sure the Houston Oilers became the Titans. Yeah, it became the Tennessee Titans. So it's like, yeah, no, I mean, again, Houston Oilers still exist. People still remember Warren Moon, those jerseys, everything. Granted, they didn't have a lot of great moments, but they still remember those, like, because of the players. Like, the logo or the team or the team name, none of that stuff mattered. It's all about what the players did. So people won't forget the players, and the people won't forget the history of the franchise. Like, if you change the name, that's something like, I don't understand the logic behind not changing the name other than just being stubborn, which, I mean, rich people are, so that's not shocking. Or not wanting to be told what to do, which, if we've noticed anything about America, is they don't like being told what to do. Sometimes. It depends on what it is. Because certain things, like, people will follow without question, and other things like, oh, how could, like, you're infringing on my rights. It's all foolish. But yeah, just change the name. It's not that hard. It's 2020. We shouldn't still be talking about Washington not changing their name. Because it's not like it's become more offensive recently. Like, it's been offensive the whole time. It was more widely accepted years ago, but now that we're in, like I said, the 21st century, people are like, you can't just be calling people that anymore. That's where you see a lot of media. I've been, whenever I talk about the team, I try not to say the name. You see a lot of media members not say the name, or a lot of people on TV or in sports, journalists, analysts, whoever, they try not to say the name. Some people, like, just don't think about it, and they're just like traditionalists. But a lot of people are just like, this name's offensive, and if it's offensive, I don't want to be the person that offends. So, I mean, it just seems reasonable. So just change the name or sell the team. Like, again, Dan Snyder, it's up to you. Don't want to change the name, then just sell the team. There's someone who does. Washington fans have been trying to get you out of here for years. Maybe this will be the thing that does it. We shall see. And speaking of things that should have been simple but now don't make any sense, the NBA is considering doing a bubble for the teams that didn't make the Disney Invitational. So we'll talk about that, the kind of the preliminary stuff with that, and why I think, at least, this is a terrible idea. But yeah, we'll talk about all of that right after the break. So stay right there.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So, this was not something I expected. I honestly just assumed that, like, all the teams, I know they talked about different things, like, oh, the teams wanted to get together, play some games, so they're not, like, off for, like, how many, almost, like, depending on when the season starts, like, that, like, 9-10 months, or whatever, and I was like, alright, yeah, no, that makes sense. But Then here comes Jackie McMullen. I mean, this isn't a bombshell, but just kind of dropping a little something mid-afternoon Thursday. And apparently the NBA is deep in discussions on a second quote-unquote bubble in Chicago for the 8 teams that weren't invited to play in Florida, enabling them to participate in a mini training camp and subsequent games against other clubs with a target date of September, sources told ESPN on Thursday. These details are still being hammered out, obviously, and teams continue to push for an alternative plan that would enable them to hold mini camps within their local markets and to explore the idea of establishing regional sites where teams could scrimmage against each other. Multiple team sources said union leader Michelle Roberts has been steadfast in her insistence that the non-playoff teams follow the same protocol as the 22 teams that will be quarantined in Orlando and competing for the NBA championship. Commissioner Adam Silver Commissioner Adam Silver supports Roberts on the issue. It was confirmed by those who were on the call. Michelle's made it clear that's how it's going to be, said one front office member whose team pushed to create a mini camp within its own market. Adam's going along with it. I understand their point, but it's frustrating for us that we can't loosen the restrictions a bit so we can get some work done in our gyms. 7 of the 8 non-playoff teams participated in the call with the officials, with the New York Knicks, shocker, as a lone team without a representative on the call because they were interviewing head coaching candidates, including Los Angeles Lakers assistant Jason Kidd and Spurs assistant Will Hardy, sources told ESPN. On the call, the league sought assurances from the teams they will send their players if they move forward with the bubble format, sources told ESPN. Play would be similar to a summer league format with specific parameters still being discussed. Obviously, if you didn't already remember, which is fair, because all these teams were sorry this year, it would be the Hawks, Hornets, Bulls, Cavs, Pistons, Warriors, which would be kind of weird, Wolves, and then the Knicks. Those are the 8 that weren't invited. Pistons coach Dwayne Casey said he took an informal poll among the coaches who are not in Orlando, and he says the majority of them prefer holding their own mini camps. We'd rather do that than go to a bubble, Casey said, because unlike those teams in Orlando, we wouldn't be playing for the same reason. The reason we want mini camps is to get our team together to have that camaraderie, to improve and enjoy some competition. We feel we can do that safely in our own environment. We can't let these guys sit around from March 11th to December without something. It's going to hurt their careers. It's too long of a layoff. Yeah. Reasonable. I mean, there's more to the article. You guys can read it. It's on ESPN, like the app, or I imagine it's on the website, or what have you. But, yeah. So, a new bubble. Awful idea. Don't do it. It doesn't make any sense for multiple reasons. One, we don't even know if the first bubble is going to work. That's number one. We have no idea how it's going to work. I know that this is the. I was talking to my family about this earlier, and it's just kind of funny where we all kind of collectively are as a country with the virus. And I understand like the whole like, oh, you're probably not going to die thing, or like, oh, like most people are asymptomatic thing, or whatever. Even though some people have it, get hospitalized, recover, but then there's still long-term damage done to their bodily organs because of disease, and even from that, we won't know how it affects your ability to, or inability, I should say, to fight off other diseases. We won't know for years. So I still wouldn't just be like, oh yeah, let's just go out and catch it. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like they were doing in Alabama. A foolish idea. Yeah, so with that, I think it was I think they're up to, it's something like 30 some odd players and 10 staffers that have it, or that tested positive for it. And it's just everyone's like, wow, those numbers are so low. Which, I mean, again, when you total up, I think they've done 1,000 tests, yes, that isn't a high amount at all. I completely agree. However, one positive test shut down the NBA and all sports for 4 months. Basically, or at least 3 months, basically, in this country. And yet, like I said, 35 is oh yeah, no, 35 players, that's fine, we'll be fine. The Clippers have to shut down their practice facility today. Don't worry about it, we'll be fine. Come Orlando, it's all good. Like I said, just funny. Again, not hoping anything happens in the bubble. I hope it goes off smoothly, so we have some sports to watch. That would be fun. But yeah, it's just funny the way we're kind of looking at it. Like, oh yeah, it's no big deal that like 30 plus guys have tested positive. No big deal at all. So yeah, that's my first point, is that we don't know how this bubble is going to work. Number one, granted, it'll be less teams, so less to worry about, but it's like, where would it be in Chicago? Where would you would you have it? How would it work? Where's everybody going to stay at? All that stuff. Like, there's so many logistical things you still have to work out. And again, this is why it's not finalized. It's just like, the idea was just brought up. So, but I'm saying they still got a lot of fine details that have to be worked out. On top of, again, if the bubble is actually even feasible during these times. Because I know, like Fauci and other guys have talked about, like, oh, sports need a bubble. And that's great. But we don't even know if the bubble works. Because as I'm saying, most other countries that are starting sports back up aren't really doing it in a bubble per se. Like, they're just like doing it with like no fans and everything else. But like, their countries have kind of dwindled the virus down to the point where like you don't need to be in a bubble. The reason why it's in a bubble is because the virus is still everywhere. They're trying to find a safe space to house it and hopefully not have that many people catch it. And if we as a country had just like, say, worn masks for like the first 2 months when it started in like March, we would pretty much be done with it now. You would think. Again, you never know. But you would think, like, all right, if once the NBA started shutting things down, like, all right, say even April. Like, if we just like everyone just wore masks for like a month and a half, 2 months. I thought like there was some health official that came out and said like if everybody in America wore masks for like 2 weeks, it'd basically be gone, more or less. Like if everyone just went everywhere with a mask on for 2 weeks, you would be fine. We as a country would be relatively fine. That's not what we did, and now we're at where we're at. So that's number one. We don't know we don't even know if the bubble will work. Number two, like, why? And I mean that because, like, why? I understand the aspect of, like, oh, we need to have these guys do something. That makes sense. You don't want to have them, like they were saying, go 9 months between, like, doing something competitive. Even against, whether it's with your own team or against another team. Completely understand that. But, like, why can't they do it like they were trying to do in their home market? Just have the teams be able to meet up at a practice facility or something, to scrimmage and do whatever and work on their game there. You don't need to get 8 teams together to do that. To play, like, go through mini camps and play scrimmage games. Like, if you think, that's the funny thing is that, like, people are opting out of the bubble that matters. Like, people, like, there's a championship on the line and people are like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do this. And again, it's not a lot of people, but there are still people that are like, yeah, no, I'm good. I don't need to be doing this right now. So what do you think is going to happen when you have a bubble of teams that are just doing this literally for fun? Again, some people will go because they just want to hoop and everything, and I get that. But some people are like, why am I doing this? Like, if I'm Clay or if I'm Steph Steph was the wrist, I think. Wrist or hand, something like that. But if I'm Clay coming off of like major surgery, why am I going to play manufactured scrimmage games in the middle of a pandemic? Like, for what reason? Working out on my own, working out at the team facility, cool. I completely get that. But just going fine to Chicago in September just to be there for scrimmage games that literally mean nothing other than to just play. I can play pickup games in California. I promise you, if he needs to find a pickup game, he can find one. If that's what you're worried about. And so, like, what? I just don't understand, like, what is the purpose of this? Who is this benefiting? Like, no one, like, is it going to be televised? Because if the regular bubble's going on with the playoff games, no one's going to care. Like, no one's watching this. Again, all these teams, compared to the playoff teams, are less good. I don't want to say sorry too often, but, like, they're not as good. So no one's going to watch these games. You're not going to have people there to film them. So they're just doing it to do it, basically. Like, for what? Like, it just makes, like I said, the logic behind it just, there is none to me. Now, again, who knows if this is even going to happen? But the fact that it's even being discussed as an option is, like, kind of nuts. Because, like, why? That's why I just want, like, why? Like, alright, you want people to work on their games? Cool. You can do that at the crib. At the crib meaning, like, their home markets. Like, you don't have to, like, the Knicks don't have to leave New York to do that. And, like I said, just not to belabor that point, but going on to my last point, really, just that, like, we don't know what this country's going to look like in a month. We don't know what the country's going to look like by the time the Disney Invitational starts up in like 30 days. We have no idea what Florida or Texas or California or where all these other states, we don't know what they're going to look like in terms of, like, the coronavirus cases. Because it seems like, I mean, I know Texas, they're trying to, like, tighten up now, like, oh, everywhere I got to wear a mask. Which, I mean, again, you've done that a couple months ago, you would be fine, more or less. But yeah, it's just like, we don't know what the situation is going to be like in this country in a month. Every month this year has given us something else wild, it seems like, at this point. Some stuff so wild doesn't even get mentioned anymore because there's, like, new wild stuff that's happened. And that's kind of where we're at this year. So, like, who even knows what it's going to look like in July, like late July, let alone what it's going to look like in September. So, like, let's, like, pump the brakes here. Let's not worry about that. Like, you know, like, it just doesn't make any sense. And also, that's another point. Not to say these guys haven't been working out. I know there was the footage of Trae Young at, like, some like summer league, like Drew League type thing in Oklahoma. We were just, like, playing a game for whatever reason. But, like, what if these guys have been taking, I mean, kind of been relaxing a little bit? Not to say they're not working at all, but it's like, if they weren't expected to play or do anything this offseason outside of just maybe some team workouts, they weren't expecting them to play, like, actual, like, quote unquote games. Like that seems like a weird thing to tell me 3 or 4 months into this offseason. Like, oh yeah, in like 2 months be ready to play a games against other teams. And now I gotta pick out, and not to say it's impossible. Like, again, if you've been relaxing, you've been working on different things, you've been taking the time to look into different things, start different things, like whatever these players do with their free time. Now all of a sudden you gotta be like, all right, so I know we told you guys weren't doing anything, but, like, we gotta ramp it back up now. Like, that doesn't seem right to them. At least these, like, the playoff teams, they knew at some point the NBA was going to try to come back. Whether they were going to come back or not is up to them, but the NBA was going to try to come back, so you couldn't get too far out of shape. With these guys, like, they were like, all right, yeah, our season's done. Like, what do we have to worry about? And now all of a sudden the season isn't, like, it's done because these games don't matter, but, like, it's not done because we have to do them. Like, it's a weird dynamic there. So, again, this makes no sense. I don't know why the NBA would do this. I don't see the benefit of this for anybody. Just let them work out in their team facilities or in a facility safe in their state and go about it that way. You don't need to intermingle the teams, in my opinion. We'll talk about that with the NFL and their preseason things and how they're kind of working their ways around that. But it's like, you don't need to intermingle the teams more than you have to. Now, again, the Disney thing, while I'm still don't believe it's the best idea, like, it makes sense because you want to try on champions. So, all right, cool. You kind of, if you want to do that, then you kind of have to. You got to bring all the teams down there. But for this, for just them to play some scrimmage games, like for what purpose? Like, if you're gonna have me potentially risk getting the Rona, like, at least let it be for something that matters. Like, if I'm gonna catch the Rona down in Disney, all right, like, it's just bad luck. At least that matters. This Chicago thing, that doesn't matter. Like, why? Like, for what? Like, no. There's no reason for it, in my opinion. But who knows what will even happen? But just, like, I saw that and I was like, who's in support of this? I was just confused, honestly, more than anything when I saw it. I was just confused. I was like, why would anybody want that? But hey, maybe they know something I don't. But to me, it didn't make any sense. But after this next break, we're going to come back and we're going to discuss the one, the only, the woman, myth, legend, Maya Moore. I know we talked about like players like especially WNBA players like skipping their season and like doing the thing on social justice or different things they want to actively work towards and discuss and fight for during this time. But to a degree, Maya Moore was kind of a pioneer for that in that she did this 2 years ago. So I wanted to kind of highlight her because the thing she's been working for, if you didn't know what it was, I'll tell you in a second, but it's finally came to a resolution Wednesday, I believe. So yeah, so I'm saying, so because of that, I was like, all right, it seems like a good time to kind of talk about what she did and like what it really means to use your platform. Because that's what she's doing. Or that's what she's been doing, and I imagine that's what she's going to continue to do. So we will talk about her right after the break. Stay right there.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to Extreme Cage Fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, as I said, Maya Moore. If you don't know who she is, she's only arguably the probably minimum top 5 greatest women basketball players, college pro, of all time. We'll get into those accolades in a moment. But if you haven't been hearing from her or of her recently, it's because she had stepped away from the WNBA. Like I said, I think I don't know this for 100% fact, but I'm pretty confident that she went on like a mission. Like she was like doing like missionary work, and then or ministry work. Was it ministry work? But yeah, so it was like missionary and ministry work, and then she started focusing her attention on the criminal justice system and helping out people that had been wronged there. And she had been working on this for 2 months, and I guess she met this guy like years ago, like 10 years ago. And she had heard about a situation, or maybe even longer than 10 years ago. She heard about a situation. And she's not the first person to try to get someone that's been wrongly convicted, like their conviction overturned, stuff like that. But she decided, like, look, this is what's important to me right now. I'm going to leave the WNBA in the middle of her prime, and I'm going to go do this. And it was crazy. I mean, it didn't get like too much attention, in my opinion, because again, it's like a WNBA, no one really cares. But it's kind of like if Michael Jordan, the first time he retired, was like, hey, instead of going to play baseball, I'm gonna go like help wrongly accused people get out of prison. Like I mean, I'm not saying she's the Michael Jordan of the WNBA, but she's like not the Michael Jordan of the WNBA. So there's that. But yeah, or like imagine if like Mike Trout just like retired like today and was like, you know what? There's other things I want to do with my life. Other more important things, like that don't involve like playing another sport, like other like life things. Like I want to go like build schools or build hospitals in like a third world country or something like that. Like it's kind of like something like that, just like something completely out of left field. Obviously, people can do this and can still play. Like LeBron's doing it with the voter suppression thing, registering people to vote and like making sure they kind of help combat the voter suppression that they may end up facing, both like again in their primaries or in the general elections that happen throughout the country. So he's been doing that. I mean, obviously, like he's built a school. Like LeBron's done a lot of stuff for people while also playing. So like I said, you don't need to step away. But she was like, this needs my full attention. So she went and did it, and shout out to her. So, like I said, to get into the finer details of things, Maya Moore's quest is from ESPN. There's a lot of articles about this. A lot of articles about the work that she's been doing. I think from ESPN, Katie Barnes have written a couple things. There's a piece up on the Undefeated right now. It's called Maya Moore, the Game Changer. This is the epitome, and the quote is, "This the epitome of using her platform," is from Sean Hurd from, I guess, this from Thursday, like after she was able to get the man out of jail. But yeah, so there's a lot of great articles out there. If you're interested in reading them, I would advise you to, because again, what she's doing is unprecedented. It's not only just because she's doing it, but also because of who she is or was in the lore of women's basketball. So, Maya Moore's quest to see Jonathan Irons walk free from Missouri's Jefferson City Correctional Center was realized on Wednesday. Maya Moore, who put her WNBA career with the Minnesota Lynx, on hold in 2019 to help Irons have his convictions for burglary and assault with a weapon overturned, was among those who greeted Irons outside the prison when he was released. I think she put a video up on, I don't know if it was Twitter or Instagram. I know I saw the video on Twitter, but it was like a 3-minute video. Resolution wasn't great, but that's unimportant. But you could see like how excited and happy, and again, there were a lot of people out there, and they were all very happy. But you could just see how emotional she was just realizing what she had done for someone else, which is like really, really cool to see. And dropped down to her knees at one point, in a group hug. Like, yeah, apparently it's on Instagram, but again, you can find it on Twitter too. But yeah, so Moore, who was born in Jefferson City, interesting note, did not know that, met Irons when she visited the correctional center before her freshman year at UConn after seeing her grandfather, Reggie Williams, reviewing legal documents regarding Irons' case, according to the New York Times. In that moment, I really felt like I could rest. Moore said Thursday on the Good Morning America about Irons' release from prison. I'd been standing, and we'd been standing for so long, and it was an unplanned moment where I just felt relief. I think she's talking about dropping down to her knees. It was kind of a worshipful moment, just dropping to my knees and just being so thankful that we made it. Irons, who was 40, served 22 of a 50-year sentence from 1998 following a conviction of burglary and assault with a weapon of a suburban St. Louis homeowner. The man testified that Irons was the person who assaulted him in his home, but Irons' lawyers said that there was no evidence, a witness or witnesses, fingerprints, footprints, DNA to corroborate that their client committed the crime. Irons, a black teen who was living in poverty, was 16 at the time of the incident, but was tried as an adult, and the all-white jury shockingly found him guilty. Judge Daniel Green granted Irons' petition for a writ of habeas corpus in March, vacating his convictions from burglary and assault and ordering that he be released from the maximum security prison. The judge placed a stay on the order, allowing the state 15 days to request a review by the appellate court. My rest is going to start now. I haven't really been able to have the fullness of the rest that I wanted. And so I'm like, okay guys, now is time to take a break. So I'm looking forward to some rest and seeing what the future holds for me, maybe around the same time next spring, Moore said Thursday. Then, like I said, there's more in this article about, like, Irons talking and all that stuff. But, yeah, it's just, like, again, very cool moment. She helps a guy who, and he's not the only guy. I know that there's a lot of people that are in jail, especially from years ago, on crimes they did not commit. I know it's another thing. I know it's a thing Kim Kardashian has become recently pretty interested in. I know she's been working with people to try to get people pardoned or whatever. You get convictions overturned for people who are in there for no reason. You could say. And this guy, like I said, his whole life was basically thrown away when he went to jail. Like, he was 16 at the time. He's now 40. Been in jail for over 20 years, and is just getting what do you do? Like, how do you how do you begin to live life when you spent more of your life in jail than free? And even when you were free, you were in poverty, so you don't really know much about the world. And obviously, the world he's coming into is not that much different, but at least a little bit different than the world he came out of, especially with all like technology and different things. Like, he's gonna have to get reacclimated to society and all that stuff. So it just messed up the way that works. But that wasn't my main point. But yeah, so it was just a great moment for him. Great moment for Maya Moore, and just so like I get to really hammer home the point of like how great Maya Moore is and how remarkable it is that she did what she did. I think she left when she was 29 because she's 31 now, so it was like 2 years ago. she was a number 1 overall pick in 2011 WNBA draft. 4-time WNBA champion, a Finals MVP, a regular season MVP, 6-time All-Star, 3-time All-Star Game MVP, 5-time WNBA first team, 2-time second team, 2-time defensive second team, led the league in steals once, led the league in scoring once, was the Rookie of the Year, was on the All-Rookie team. She's won a FIBA World Championship. She's won 2 EuroLeague Women's Championships. She's won a few other overseas awards. She's won 2 national championships while in college. She was a 4-time first-team All-American. She was a 2-time USA Basketball Women's National Player of the Year. She was the Big East Player of the Year 3 times. John Wooden Award winner twice. Naismith College Player of the Year twice. AP College Player of the Year twice. She was academic All-American just for good measure. She's won 2 gold medals. Well, I guess total 4, because she's won 2 gold medals in the Olympics, 2 gold medals in the World Championships. She was also even better measure, she was the Gatorade National Player of the Year, the Gatorade Female Athlete of the Year, and also McDonald's All-American. Just to sprinkle it on there. So I'm saying, you're talking about a woman with those kind of accolades being like, you know what? I understand that I'm in the prime of my career now, but there is something bigger for me to do. And that should be awarded and applauded every time. Because when you hear about the players, like the NBA players talking about the bubble thing, the things that they could do, it was a lot of, not to say like that they didn't maybe mean what they said, but up until this point, a lot of it's been talk because of the people that have left or that aren't going down there. Now, their main reason has been, I want to focus on this. They usually give like the COVID or the family reason, not to say that Avery Bradley won't do that while he's not playing. But I don't think anyone specifically come out and said that I'm not playing because of this, because of I want to fight social injustice in this country. Like WNBA players have come out and said that. A couple of them have. But no one in the NBA, to my knowledge, and please correct me if I'm wrong, has come out and said that. So I'm just saying, it's just like how much did all those players, because again, it wasn't just Kyrie, it wasn't just Dwight, it wasn't just Avery Bradley that spoke on this, because even Dwight, the Lakers are still optimistic that he'll even play when the season restarts. So again, all that sounds good when you're like, I'm going to use my platform to do this, or I'm willing to give everything up, or I'm willing to go and fight, I'm willing to, this is bigger than us, this is like whatever. Like all that sounds good. But then you have people actually out here doing it. So, like, it's not impossible. I said, am I saying that she couldn't have done this in the off season or then on her free time that she need to completely retire from the NBA or leave, or not the NBA, the WNBA, or leave the WNBA in order to do this? Maybe, maybe not. We'll never know. But she was like, you know what? I need to give this my full attention. And like I said, that is commendable. Just a person willing, especially like, again, a person of that stature. This is something she could have done she could have started work on this after her career was over. Like, all right, after my playing career is done, I win a couple more championships, do whatever. And then this is the battle I'm going to fight. This is my post playing career. But she was like, now, this is important now. This needs to be done now. And like I said, it's not Michael Jordan per se, but it's like if Michael Jordan, when he retired the first time, was like, instead of playing baseball, I'm going to go fight for other people. That's kind of what it's like. Like I said, that should be commended all over. Because no one asked her to do this. No one forced her to do this. This was her decision. And it's a decision that a lot of people would not make. Even if they think that, like, what's happening is wrong and they hear stories about things. And like a lot of people would have just advocated for it or spoke out about it, like, in post-game press conferences, in the media, in interviews, whatever. But not very many people would be willing to be like, I'm going to quit playing the sport that pays for my livelihood. I'm just going to give it up right now and go fight for this. Like, that's that important for me. Like, that's how important this issue is for me. Not very many people would be willing to do that. So I'm saying she deserves all the credit and all the accolades in the world for doing something like this. Because, again, this is commendable. And it worked. Not to say that if it wouldn't have worked, it wouldn't have been worthwhile to fight for this. But, like, the man is now free. Like, all her hard work, all her effort that she put in over the last 2 years has worked. It was all to leading up to this point. That's why, again, you could see in the video that she was just so happy because it was like, oh my gosh, like, this actually happened. Because then whenever, like, you hear cases or stories all the time of people, like, being wrongly convicted of things, stuff like that, and it just doesn't, unfortunately for them, it just doesn't work out. But she was able to get this guy out of prison when he wasn't supposed to be there. And that's commendable. It is very, very commendable. And it's just, like I said, it's an example of what you can do, or what athletes can do, or what celebrities or whoever, people in power can do with their platform. So like I said, all this awareness stuff is cool. All the posts and the writing, the things on the street, or changing street signs, or taking down statues, different things like that. All that stuff is great to fight for, like, stuff like that. But, statues is action. But, like, writing street names, like, putting stuff on the back of jersey, all right, like, that's cool. But that's all to bring awareness. And at this point, like, you want to see some action. And this is a athlete using their platform and taking action with, like, the resources and the money and different things that they have at their disposal to be like, all right, this guy may not be able to do this without me, so I'm going to devote my time to this issue. Like I said, it's commendable on so many levels. Just because, like I said, it's I don't know, I could keep going on this for forever, but just like I said, it's just unprecedented in, like, this generation. Now, again, obviously you had, like, the Jim Browns and the Muhammad Ali's and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's, Bill Russell goes. I mean, not all those guys quit their careers or different things, but I know obviously Muhammad Ali lost his championship because he was like, I'm not fighting in Vietnam. So, like, again, she's not the first person to ever lose years on her career fighting for something. But in this generation of athletes, I mean, I don't know how many other people would have been willing to. I mean, I'm not gonna say no one, but I don't know how many other people would have been willing to do what she did at the height of her career. And like I said, there's no real guarantee she's coming back. She hasn't said that, like, all right, now this is done, I'm good, like, I can go back now. Like, again, obviously this one was personal to her because she had met the guy years before, like 10 years before she started working and helping him. But, like, who's to say she doesn't want to continue to do this kind of work? Like, what's stopping her now? She sees that, like, all right, she sees the good she can do in the world outside of playing basketball. Again, she's accomplished so much as a professional. Like, there's not really much else. Again, you can win more championships, win more MVPs, stuff like that. But it's like, at this point, she's. I've read off her accolades. Like, you can look them up. Like, the list is extensive. There's only so much more you can add to it. But like I said, this can change. I mean, those kind of things change her life. These things can change other people's lives, and maybe that's kind of what she wants to do now. If she's like I said, there's no like, all right, I'm done. I want to go back to playing now. She's like, all right, we'll see what happens next year. See how I'm feeling. Maybe it's like, you know what, I'm good. Maybe this is what I want to do. Who knows? But like I said, shout out to Maya Moore, one of the GOATs of women's basketball on and off the court. So yeah, shout out to her. And speaking of, well, I guess switching back to things happening on the court or on the field of play, the NFL is talking about potentially trimming down the preseason. I mean, it's been a topic that's been discussed for years, the fact that they don't need as many preseason games as they have, but now it seems like there's not going to be as many preseason games this year. So we'll talk about that, talk about why that is, and kind of if I think that's a good idea or not. All that stuff we will discuss right after the break. Stay right there.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
are back here again in the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast. So this is again an article from ESPN. But the NFL has shortened its 2020 preseason to 2 games, a source said, part of a larger acclimatization plan. I hope I said that right. For players after an unprecedented virtual offseason program due to the coronavirus pandemic, obviously. In essence, the league canceled weeks 1 and 4 of its original preseason schedule. It had previously canceled its August 8th Hall of Fame game. Most players will still report to training camp on July 28th, but the first preseason games won't be played until about a month later, so August 20th through the 24th. Second week of preseason games is scheduled for August 27th through the 31st. Some reshuffling of the original preseason schedule for weeks 2 and 3 are underway, as each team will play 1 home game and 1 road game. Teams that travel will depart on the day before the games, because we talked about like some of the same day travel stuff. Apparently, they're not having that because again, it doesn't seem feasible. That's too much toll on the road team to have to travel to the game like literally that same day, get off, play a game, and travel right back. Like that seems like a lot to put on. Like I said, to put on these athletes. The primary driver for restructuring the preseason was a consensus between the NFL and the NFL Players Association that players would need more time than normal to get into football shape. Somewhat reasonable. No teams were able to practice on field during the offseason, and many gyms and other conditioning settings have been closed. The NFL standards preseason has been 4 games since it's shortened from 6 in 1978. Did not realize that. That was, I don't know why you need 6 games. It is expected to cut further when owners activate a provision in the collective bargaining agreement to extend the regular season to 17 games, which they can do as early as next season, 2021. When that does happen, the preseason would shrink to no more than 3 games for each team. Of more immediate concern, however, is the health of players during training camp. The NFL and the NFLPA continue to discuss protocols for reopening, all that fun stuff. Sources say they're not that close to a deadline, though obviously they have up until the end of the month because like they need to have the rules in place before training camp starts. One reason for this, one other thing is that there's a chance the league will ask players and teams personnel to quarantine at home for 2 weeks before leaving for camp, which makes some sense. This doesn't even account for newly imposed rules in states like New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts, and I think Connecticut as well, which are asking people coming from states where coronavirus cases are spiking, which is most of them, or not most, but a lot of them, to quarantine for 2 weeks upon arrival, because not everybody's been in their home market. With that. So, yeah. There's also kind of, to coincide with this, there's also been some reports they're going to shrink the amount of people bringing training camp down, which that I don't understand as much. It's not like, I understand like obviously everyone has like their, like people are raising like the limits for the amount of outdoor people you can have and stuff like that. But still, it's not like 90 people is going to magically make it more likely you get it, like as opposed to 70 or 75 or 50, or not 50, but like 70. Like that, like 20 less is not going to mean, it's just 20 less people that could get it, but like that doesn't mean it's going to stop it from becoming a thing within your facility. If it's going to become a thing. Like if it's going to become a thing, it's going to be a thing. People are going to catch it, they're going to catch it. Like that isn't, whether it's 90 or 70, they're going to catch it. So that is what it is. So I don't really know too much about that. But when it comes to the preseason thing, I get it from the aspect of, like they said, one, people have to get back into shape. And I think that's kind of the funny thing about the NBA restart and why they needed to have those regular season games in place was the fact that it's going to take time to get back into really good, like, game shape. Even get back into, like, practice shape, just because, again, these people have been working out, they've been going through off-season programs, they've been doing that stuff, but they haven't been on a field with a full team since whenever their last game was. Depending, like, college, pro, whoever. Rookies, vets, like, whenever their last game was, that's the last time they've been on a field with 10 other guys on an offense or a defense. Like, they haven't been able, like, again, you see little workouts pop up here and there, even though obviously NFLPA was kind of against those because of the whole kind of potential of the Rona, which is fair. But yeah, it's gonna take some time to get people back into shape and even get back into like to get these guys caught up, because now normally you're like fine-tuning some things or improving on some things you worked on in the offseason. In my mind, again, never been in an NFL training camp, but just from that side looking in, I imagine you'd be like, all right, you worked with some things, you installed some new things, you're trying to get people up to speed, the rookies, new like free agents, undrafted guys, stuff like that, trying to get them up to speed on like lingo or like terminology or positioning or just like get the chemistry, the camaraderie down. And then you build on that. So you start that in the off season, like the spring workouts, April, May, June, stuff like that, like OTAs and minicamp. And you build upon that when training camp starts now, so you institute tackling and things like that. So now I'm saying now you have to do that all in at the same time. Like you have to be installing things and getting people up to speed. Even though again they've had the playbook, they've had the virtual session, so it's not like they've done nothing, but it's not the same. Like working through things on a chalkboard or in a meeting room or in a call over Zoom is one thing. Being out there and seeing how people react, because you could draw up the perfect, most beautiful offense or defense on a whiteboard, but all of a sudden now this guy, one guy does something you didn't expect, and now it completely changes things. You got to be able to adjust to that. So like I'm saying, you can only learn those kind of things and get those kind of reps on the field. That's why being on the field is so important. But with that, they haven't been able to do this. So now you got to kind of run through those things very quickly. You got to get through, all right, you got to, anything new we want to install on offense and defense playbook, we have to go over that. And teams, you got to get like the rookies acumen, you got to get the karate down, get to make sure all the calls are right, the signals, all that. You're doing all the stuff you were working, you would normally do in like the spring. You got to do that in the summer during training camp while also getting ready for the season. While also having to play preseason games. So it makes sense why the coaches and the players are like, look, we're going to need some time to get everything up together before we can start playing another team. And then on top of that, I would think you're going to want to limit the amount of interactions you have with opposing teams in games that don't matter. Which is again the whole reason why I'm against the non-playoff bubble for the NBA teams. It's like, if I'm going to get sick or potentially get sick in a game that matters, all right, that is what it is. Like, we're already doing this. Like, if you agree to come back for the season, you accept those risks to a degree. That doesn't mean you should just, like, actively just not worry about it. The teams or the league should just actively not do anything to make sure people are protected. But you don't want to have to be traveling and doing or interacting with people outside of your home market more than you need to. Because, again, not every home market is the same. Some are doing well, some are doing all right, some are doing, they're just seeing cases rise. So it's just like, it's all different. So you don't want to be flying all over the place, interacting with people that maybe you shouldn't be interacting with at that time. So I understand why it's only 2. From that aspect, this is just like, why are we putting our people in harm's way for games that don't matter? On top of the fact that people already don't want to play 4 preseason games anyway, because most of the starters don't play that many games. And I mean, again, I understand, like, all right, it's less time to evaluate those borderline guys, which is fair. And that's what I really feel bad for, is like these borderline roster people. Like, not the entrenched starters, not the new trade or free agent additions that are going to make the team. Obviously, not even like the high profile rookies or second year guys that are going to be on the team regardless. It's for those mid to late round picks. It's for those fringe special teams guys that usually have the summer, or I guess the spring, to kind of showcase where they've improved, where they need to improve, things like that, and then they can show how much growth you've made through the summer, and then you can work through that. Now you just got to do it all at once. And then with less games, now you have less, because in practice, there's only so many reps you can give in a practice. And you can't give everybody in the same amount of reps. You can try, especially in training camp. I imagine they do try, but it's not impossible, because as much as you want to see those other guys, you're trying to get stars ready for a season, because that's who's going to play. You got to make sure they're ready and they're on top of it. So it's not that you won't be able to, but just like it makes it hard, and that's what you use the preseason games for. That's why the starters don't play as much, because it's like, all right, now's the time for these guys, because they don't get as many practice reps. Like, all right, this is your time to shine. And now with only 2 of them, they have less time to shine. But like I said, having 2 makes sense with 1. You don't really need that many games regardless, especially since no stars playing the full game anyway. So I was like, all right, you can have them play like one of the games, like a half. Cool, we're good on that, and then from the use go from there. And then the second game, you just have like the other people, like the fringe guys play, because you don't need to expose your people 2 times, in my opinion, or your starters at least, for games that don't matter. But also, you're just you're limiting the interactions that you have with other people from other areas. Like I said, this season's already going to get a struggle to get to for 16 games. It's going to be hard enough to do that. So hopefully they have a contingency plan in place. I think it was the Big Ten was talking about the spring football thing too. A school, I forget if it was just this one school or just like the Big Ten as in general was talking about that too. The spring football thing we talked about with the Ivy League on the last episode. And they're already preparing for that. And I mean, the NFL should be preparing for that as well, just in case like things go awry and they have to like shut things down come flu season, because that's when everybody thinks a potential second wave could hit again. Maybe it hit earlier, maybe it hit after, but that's what people think. Like once flu season starts back up, like this is still going to be around, especially if we don't kind of eradicate it before then. But yeah, so it's like you want to try to do everything you can to make sure you get through as many games as possible. So limiting the amount of interactions people have to have with people outside of their home base, though, I mean, in fairness, you can still catch it. You can catch it in your home area too. Like it's not like you can only catch it from other people. Like I said, now you're limiting the amount of spread you can give to other people, or not you're limiting the amount of spread it can have within the league. If you just you've got to keep people really just entrenched in the area until they absolutely have to leave, which again would be the regular season games. So I understand that aspect of it. That makes sense to me. And plus, it was like this was a thing that was coming anyway, eventually. So it's like this is not that shocking. Like people already won less preseason games, so it's like, all right, now they just have a reason. Just like the people won the NBA season to start later, like start in December. All right, now they have a reason to start in December. I mean, obviously, a lot of things haven't worked out due to this pandemic and other things, but these little things may be stepping stones. There were steps that could have been taken, even like I said with the Washington football team changing their name. That's a step that should have been taken a long time ago, but now, because of the condition or the situation that's going on in this country, now there might actually be movement on it, even though there should have been before. Yeah, so this downtime and the social unrest and everything that's going on in the country right now is allowing for things to happen that maybe would not have happened without that. And this may be the start of that with the less preseason games, because you don't need 4. It's just unnecessary. Especially when now more teams are not using their stars in them as much. So it's like, I mean, no one's paying money or wants to see a bunch of third stringers go at it for 4 quarters. Like, that's not why you watch football. But hey, maybe that's just me. And speaking of watching football, like I said, I knew we had to get some of these details that the NFL was going to try to work out and when their plans for the season. And I told you guys that there's a pretty good chance the NFL is going to try to have fans. And it seems like I was right about that, because they're going to try to have fans, it seems like. Again, you won't know for certain until the regular season games start. But they're going to do that with a bit of a catch. So, I'm talking about what that catch is and why. It doesn't make any sense, but I could see people doing it. But yeah, so we'll discuss all that right after the break. Stay right there.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
This one, that's what you're for you guys. This one's from The Atlantic. Or The Athletic. Stupid. The Athletic. Well, I mean, technically The Athletic is like a publication, but that's not where it's from. It's from The Athletic, not from ESPN this time. But there's an article written by Daniel Kaplan saying that the NFL may ask fans to sign a COVID-19 liability waiver a la the President of the United States to attend games. Now, this is not official. I just want to put that out there. The NFL is considering requiring fans attending games this season to sign liability waivers shielding the teams from COVID-19 lawsuits, sources said. The waiver proposal is likely to be forwarded to clubs by the middle of next week as part of the broad range of league recommended best practices for reopening stadiums amid the coronavirus pandemic. It's probably something you do electronically, just trying to figure out the operational challenges associated with waivers, said one source familiar with plans under the development by the stadium reopening working group headed by NFL Senior VP of Security, Kathy Lanier. You just have to work out how best to do it. The league has said almost from the beginning of the pandemic that it expects to play its season as normally as possible, which, I mean, is whatever, but that doesn't seem realistic. Teams are preparing for a range of scenarios from no fans to nearly full stadiums. And the NFL is leaving those choices to the clubs and local health regulators. That's foolishness. As new cases of coronavirus, have surged 80% in the U.S. the last 2 weeks, it seems all but inevitable that if fans are allowed into stadiums, reports will emerge of some who attended NFL games contracted COVID-19. Because, of course, attendees at the President's rally in Tulsa last month were required to sign liability waivers, but it is questionable whether they truly legally shield the event organizers. Bob Hillard, a plaintiff official who has sued MLB on behalf of fans hit by foul balls and is currently representing Houston Nationals season ticket holders litigating over the sign stealing scandal, does not believe a potential NFL waiver would hold up in court. Strange things about waivers. They are fragile, often easily breakable, he wrote in an email, especially, as I assume here, when you are asking fans to waive their rights even if the NFL is negligent, grossly negligent, etc. It comes down to proportionate power. And the NFL has a huge hurdle to claim that a fan has an actual choice. Let's say a fan and his family go to a game, he continued. The team/NFL allows, by poor processes, that fan and his family to be exposed to corona, and everyone dies. That's a bit extreme, but okay. The waiver defense will either be a question of law for the judge or a question of fact for the jury, depending on the jurisdiction and the particular facts. I take that case. Erwin Kishner, head of sports practice at New York law firm Herrick Feinstein, I think, which represents team owners, agreed a waiver is problematic but not necessarily invalid, as Hillard suggested. The waiver is just, and he was on to talk about things, the waiver is just one element of a larger batch of recommendations expected next week from Lanier's group, which includes many teams' stadium operations managers. The recommendations, which aren't mandates, will likely include having stadiums stop accepting cash, concessions only, offering prepackaged food, and for all fans to wear masks, a source familiar with the group plans said. So yeah, I mean, there's more in the article. You can read up on it if you have an Athletic subscription. But, I mean, they have a lot of good content on it. That's not the main point. But it's just, did I expect anything less from the NFL? Not even a little bit. Because as they said in the article, the NFL is acting as if everything is just going to go perfectly fine. And maybe it will. Maybe by some happenstance or some lucky miracle, they are the only league where no one is going to test positive. And then just like everything goes smoothly, you don't have to miss any games, everybody's happy, cool. Like maybe that happens. It's not impossible. But assuming that isn't the case, and also that's assuming that there are no spikes around the country at any point during the season. Because if that happens, then they're going to be shut out regardless. Yes, even if things are more or less calmed down. Now you're going to try to get people to sign a waiver, and mind you, when they're talking about the rally in Tulsa, there was an article out there that 100% of the people that have been tested, again, that doesn't mean everyone's been tested, but the people that have been tested, like a high percentage, I think it was 100, but I don't know if it's different. This was a couple of days ago, so it might be lower now. But a lot of them are testing positive. Even, I think, Herman Cain, who was there, very clearly not wearing a mask, tested positive and now is hospitalized. So it's like, again, we don't know what the litigation they may be able to any kind of lawsuit they may be able to file against, like, the president or his administration or, like, the arena or whoever. We don't really know that yet. But regardless, you pack people, and again, at least some of these are outside, but not all of them. Some of them are domes. But you pack people in tightly together because they weren't really socially distanced, even though there wasn't that many people there. They weren't socially distanced. No one was wearing masks. None of that stuff. So I'd imagine the NFL will take different precautions than what the president did. But I mean, it seems like they're going to leave a lot of things up to the teams and states. So if you're in a state where Buzz is like, mask, wear it if you want. We really don't care. And you'll see a lot of people in there with no mask. And then you're going to be shocked when you see, 100, 1,000, how many ever people test positive for COVID-19 that went to this Eagles game 2 weeks ago. You're going to see that. Like, that's going to happen if you have fans in the stands. It's going to happen. 100%. And just like, that's the thing with these waivers, like, and that's the thing I've learned with this whole, even the mask thing, is that you can't leave choices up to the people. Because a lot of them will make what would be, in many people's opinion, the wrong choice. So, like, if you allow fans in the stands, people are going to show up because people love football that much. They're going to go. There's not anything you can do to stop them. They're going to go. When this idea was first kind of like put out there on Twitter, you already saw people saying like I don't care. I would sign a waiver to go. 100% would. I'm not saying I would, but you saw people on Twitter saying that. Like, I would 100% do that. And that's the problem, because if you open the floodgates for that, even unless you don't have very strict rules and guidelines, you're only going to let a certain number of people in. Everyone will be this amount of feet apart. Everyone got to come in with a mask on. Like, if you don't got a mask on, you're not coming to the game. All that stuff. Even if you force sign a waiver, you're leaving things up to the people in terms of they're going to make a decision that they want to make. Not not in the best decision of others, but just it's in the best decision of them. Like, I want to go watch football, so I'm going to go watch football. I would not set any foot anywhere near a stadium until things are a lot more manageable in terms of, like, we have a vaccine or the cases are gone or whatever. Like, I'm not doing any of that personally, but that's just me. Don't expect everyone to be like me. But yeah, so I'm saying, if you leave it up to the people, they're going to show up. And then when, not because it's not really an if, just like when somebody tests positive. Because again, I would be shocked if you go through 16 games on a given weekend and no one tests positive. That just seems unlikely in the stands, if you allow fans in the stands. So when these people test positive, it's not like a thing where it's a disease where it only affects you, or you have to do something very deliberate to pass it on to people. You can not even know you have it and pass it on to people. That's how, I don't say crazy, but that's how this virus works. Like, you don't even need to be symptomatic. You don't you don't even need to know that you're sick or know that you're sick to be able to pass it on. So because of that, you are now then exposing everyone else in that community that didn't go to the game, that just doesn't even care about football, to the Rona now. If you're the NFL and these teams, if you allow fans in the stands, I know they're going to want to get that money. So, assuming they do, now you're just willingly exposing hundreds and thousands of people, potentially. Then, all right, this person goes to a game, maybe they go to a restaurant after or a bar after, if they're open at that point. They sit down, they mix with some people there. Then they come home, they go to work the next day, meet up with some people there, they go to a grocery store, they go to wherever, they go in all these places, and not knowing they have it yet because they haven't been tested, or maybe they'll never know because they're asymptomatic, and they're just like, I don't need to get tested, I feel fine. Now you're not just affecting yourself at that point. Even though, again, you could catch it and catch it bad. You're not just affecting yourself, now you're affecting the entire community, because, like I said, when you pass it on to one person, they may pass it on to 3 people, and then those 3 people may pass it on to 10 people, and it's just like I said, this is how these outbreaks start. This is like, I think it was, like I said, even back when they were doing the contact tracing, like early long ago, I think it was in South Korea or one of those countries overseas that has handled it better than America has. Like they said, like one person like led to the infection of like it was like something like 90, 100 people. It was such a not. I mean, again, it's not like 100,000, but it was such a big number for one person. Like this one person's action caused 90 other people to get it, so something like that. And I'm saying, so imagine that, but then there's like 20 or 50 people that do that same thing that went to the game. Now, instead of having just one person affect 90, you have 50 people in potentially affecting. Again, it's going to range, but it's like on average they end up affecting 50 people. That is now almost 3,000 people that are infected, and then they can all affect other people, and then infect other people, and then just like I said, now next thing you know, your city's a hotspot for the virus, and no one wants that because then you got to shut everything down, and no one wants to do that because no one wants to again lose their jobs, not be able to go places, not be able to do things. No one's going to want that. Granted, it won't be summertime anymore, so maybe it'll be easier to get people to stay inside, but who knows? Like I said, now you're just asking for hotspots to pop back up in the middle of cold and flu season. If you do stuff like this. Like I said, you can't leave it up to the people. Because that's when you have those states that have left the mask choice or the mask wearing up to the people and just say like, hey, it's suggested, but you don't have to do it or you're not forced to do it here. And then you, like I said, you see things where in Texas or in Florida now, they got to shut things down, or California even, they got to shut things down again after reopening things. They didn't have strict enough regulations when they reopened things the first time. Like I said, taking longer, in my opinion, to reopen is it was better than reopening too soon and then shut back down again. Because now you guys people's hopes up and you think that everyone's going to be making money and doing whatever. Now they got to shut back down again. It's a complete disaster, in my opinion. And they teach his own. And that's what, just like saying, that's what you're opening these towns and these cities and these states up to if you just let people go to games week after week. Waiver or no waiver. And then, like I said, it's hard to even determine how well the waiver will hold up in court. Because, I mean, it's hard to even know if they got it from the game. Like you don't, or you won't know that. It's hard to know that exactly at the time, like where exactly you got it. Because it's not like it says, like, oh, you got it from here, you got it from there. Like, you don't know. So that's another thing. Like, you don't even know they got it from the game. And it's just like, they could have brought it to the game, and it's like a whole mess. Like I'm saying, if I'm not at the game, and I got it from someone at the game, I didn't sign a waiver. So I'm like, I would be mad at the NFL or mad at the team or the owner or whoever for being like, yeah, let's just open things up just because. Like, I'd be mad because this I'm not. All right, that person took the risk. That's fine. I didn't want to take that risk, and now I'm infected because that's just how the virus works. So I'm saying, just don't do it. Just no fans this year. It's gonna be weird. It's gonna be awkward. We'll see how bad it is when the NBA tries to do it. Like the KBO's doing it. It's like working out fine. Soccer leagues overseas are doing it. It's like whatever. Like people are still playing the games. Like it's not that bad, relatively speaking. But yeah, just no fans. Not this year. It's fine. We'll all hopefully live. Who knows? I mean, as like I said, it just doesn't seem to be worth the risk, in my opinion. And speaking of taking a risk, as we discussed, NBA players, a lot of them are willing to go down and risk that Rona for a championship. And as I've said on this podcast a couple times, I think that championship will come with an asterisk. But some of the players don't feel that same way, and they may have made some compelling arguments to maybe make me consider, at least, changing my opinion on that. So we'll discuss their thoughts and their opinions, and then where my opinion now stands on that issue right after the break. So we'll stay right there.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
podcast, which I feel, I don't know this for a fact, but I feel like Austin Rivers is one of the, take that back. I think Adam Silver mentioned it on his call when he had like the conference call on Friday about how like about the whole asterisk thing, and he's like, no, I think they deserve like a gold star on that asterisk, something along those lines. I'm when we've seen players speak out, but I know I thought Austin Rivers was one of the earlier players to speak out about this idea of an asterisk, and he said he sent him and Taylor Ricks were cool, so he sent her this on Twitter or Instagram or via text or whatever. Don't know. Not important. He said, I think whoever wins should have an asterisk next to it, but only for it being one of the toughest championships ever won. You're asking guys to take 3 to 4 months off, then come back and find chemistry, etc. Then play during a pandemic while players are fighting for the Black Lives Matter movement and all that stuff. There's a lot going on right now, crazy times, and a lot of worry. And during these times, players are leaving their families to go live in a lockdown bubble. So for all these reasons and more, I think it will be one of the more tougher championships ever won. Only season ever like this. And then he has ever again, all caps. And he isn't the only one to say that. I know like Giannis talked about this. A couple other players have talked about it since it kind of came out. In fairness, of course, they would say that because they want to get recognition for winning the championship. That. And not to say that that's their only motivation behind it, but it makes sense why the players would be speaking like this, because they're the ones going down there and playing in these conditions. So, of course, they think it's very difficult. And, of course, they don't want their championship, though. I mean, again, an asterisk in sport is whatever, because when you think back on it, I don't know if 20, 30 years from now people are going to remember that the Astros cheated to win their World Series. The Red Sox may or may not have cheated very similarly to win their World Series. No one really seems to care that a lot of the Patriots' Super Bowls are mired in controversy. I know people kind of as a joke call the Rockets championships. Like say there's an asterisk next to the Rockets championships, but that's because of MJ. But again, no one. It's not like anyone just like takes them out. Really, it's a lot of MJ fans and Bulls fans are just saying like, hey, look, y'all got lucky that MJ wasn't playing. And no one says like, oh, those championships don't count. No one talks about the strikes shortened seasons or the seasons with like only 50 games or 60 games. I think even the lockout shortened season. I think the first Heat championship was a lockout shortened season, if I remember correctly. No one really seems to bring that up with LeBron. Actually, I'm gonna double check that just because I don't like. I like trying not to lie to you people on this podcast. I want to double check that was actually a lockout shortened season, but I'm pretty sure it was. All right, boom. Second year in Miami. Yeah, they only played 62 games. So, I mean, and I promise you, no one brings that up, nor does anyone really care. So it's like all the asterisk talk is like whatever. I think the first Spurs championship they only played like it wasn't like 50 or something like that. Tim Duncan, let me look up his stuff. I think it was what was it? Yeah, the 98-99. They played 50 games. So, again, no one really talks about that when you talk about their championship and stuff like that. But, I mean, it is a fact that that's what happened. And I'm making sure that they won the championship that year. Because it doesn't say. But, yeah. Show 99 playoffs. Yeah, they beat the Knicks. So, yeah, they won the championship. Okay, that's what I thought. So, yeah, they played a 50-game season and won it all. No one cares to bring that up with the Spurs or Tim Duncan or Pop or any of the great players. Because, like, again, an asterisk is just all fun and good to like make a joke about or talk about, but no one really puts asterisks next to the things. I'm just going back to the main point of this. I definitely see where they're coming from. And I think when I was talking about it personally, I didn't really factor in, because obviously I was talking about like, oh, they're playing in a weird situation, there's no fans, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't really factor in just the amount of isolation or just complete separation from the rest of society that these NBA players are going to be in for up to 3 months, potentially, if you make it far. And even I know, I think it was DeMar DeRozan was on like the Jumper or something like that. He was talking about reading through the handbook, and he was just like, this is all kind of ridiculous. The fact that what they're going through or what what rules and regulations they have to make sure that they don't get sick off the court. But then again, you're on the court and you're banging next to guys, you're sweating on everybody, you're bumping in, you're breathing on everybody. But like, you can't play doubles ping pong and like other different things. It just, again, it's all kind of crazy. But yes, I didn't really think about that aspect of the mental aspect of it, and I was looking at it more physically and like aesthetically, but now we focus on the mental, because again, a lot of athletes are creatures of habit, so they're used to certain routines, certain things they like to do before games, certain things maybe they like to do on their off days or after games, and they're not going to be able to do most of those things now with them being in the bubble and stuff. They're gonna have limited activities they can do, limited things they can see or do, limited people they can even interact with on a daily basis. I mean, until their families get there, like, there's a chance that their own people they're going to see are their own teammates and maybe a couple other people just like walking around the hotels and like facilities and stuff. But like, you're not interacting with people outside of that bubble, really. Not that, I mean, assuming they don't sneak out, which I think people will try to do. See how strict their rules are if they do catch someone, or it's sneaking someone in. I guess I should say both things could work, because they are going to be down in Florida. I imagine people can find ways to bring people in from Florida if they so choose. Again, that's not the main point. But yeah, just like these athletes, I don't want to make it like they're like creatures or whatever, but like, these athletes are going to be in a completely different mind state than they would normally be for any other postseason. Now, obviously, during the postseason, like, the intensity's higher, the games matter more, all that fun stuff. But you got to focus on that, while also hoping you don't catch you don't catch a virus. That could be, again, we don't know if it could mix in with the wrong athlete, and then it could potentially be fatal. While also being away from your family, because now your family's back at home. They're not allowed to be here until after the first round's done. So there's literally like 8 teams left at that point. So of the 22, 14 of them will be gone by then. So that's most of these people won't even be able to see. Will never be able to see their family while in the bubble. Most of these teams will never do that. And then, like I said, so then you got that, and then even when you come down there, you can only see them but so much. You got to be doing all these things. And like I said, there's social unrest going on right around outside you. Also, Florida happens to be one of the hot spots currently. We don't know what it'll look like in a month, but currently their cases are rising by the day. So you're going into an area where you don't even know how safe it is just to even be in that state right now. And you got to do all that and act like everything's normal, while also, again, getting your body back in shape to play meaningful games in less than a month. Like I said, so you got all that swirling on around you on the outside. And that's what these players have to work through. After, again, basically taking an off-season off, because they've had off since March. And again, people always work out during the off-season stuff, so no one's truly, if they want to be, no one's truly out of shape. But again, they're not in game shape when they come back. And they don't even like the preseason games, quote unquote, like, they matter too, because they're for seeding. Like, it's not like their actual preseason games where the outcome doesn't matter, and you can kind of like you can kind of work people back into it. Like, no, like, these games matter. Like, every one of those games is important. Mainly just for any team like below, like the top couple teams in the conference. Like 4 down in each conference, more or less, maybe even 3 down, depending. These games all matter. Even kind of for the Lakers and the Bucks and those kind of guys, they matter, because you don't want to be stumbling and bumbling into the playoffs after being great all season. That's the last thing you want to do, and then all of a sudden, boom, you get knocked out by the Pelicans, or you get knocked out by the Grizzlies or the Magic or the Wizards in the first round. Like, that's not what you want. But yeah, so I think I was selling it short a little bit personally, just how much of a mental toll this being in isolation is going to take on people, because not everybody's comfortable staying at home. Not everybody's comfortable being locked down, not being able to go a lot of places, not being able to do a lot of things, see a lot of people. Not everybody's comfortable like that. And again, a lot of these athletes live very out there lives where they're in the public eye, they're going to places, they're doing things, they're seeing things all the time, and now they haven't been able to do that, and then you're going into this bubble where you're basically not allowed to do that, because no one is really allowed in that isn't a part of the bubble. Like I said, it's going to be a drastic change for a lot of people. Now, like me personally, I'm not really Not to say I don't go out and hang out with people and enjoy myself in crowds and stuff like that, but I don't have any issue staying at home and keeping to myself or just hanging out with family and stuff like that. Like, that's not an issue for me. But not everyone's me. Not everyone is that way. Some people I know are kind of going a little, like, what's it called? Like, stir crazy or whatever it is. From just having to be sitting in the house. So, like, the moment stuff was opening back up, they were out. And they're out. You see people out every day. Because it's like, you don't know when you're going to be locked back in again. You don't want to have to deal with that. I know a lot of people that were struggling in April and May. Not being able to go out, not being able to see people, not being able to do things like that. I know a lot of people. And then now, like I said, once things open back up, they were right out there. Immediately. They're like, all right, this place is open. Cool, we're there. This place is open. Cool, we're there. Kind of thing. So like I said, I imagine that's the same kind of mental toll it's going to take. But then again, all these people weren't playing a sport too. Again, people were like working and stuff, but you're working from home. Like, these people have to go, and you're not, like, when you're working from home, you're not risking catching the Rona. And these people have to go out, play, perform at the highest level, hopefully compete and win a championship or try to win a championship, while also hoping you don't get sick while doing that. It's a lot to deal with. So I understand why the players are like, look, this is going to be, everyone's talking about, like, how this is going to be a joke, like, you're not going to take it seriously, whatever. Like, for us, it's going to be very difficult. And I think I was thinking of it more from the outside perspective as opposed to putting myself in the bubble. And if I was like, all right, no, if I'm there, like, this is, I mean, granted, you won't know how it's going to go. And I think that's the biggest thing is it'll really just depend on how the playoff goes in terms of how the public perception of it is. It's going to be hard for the players regardless, but the public perception will depend a lot on how it goes. Like, if a team gets to the finals because every round they face a team that is missing key guys, whether it's due to injury or whether it's due to the Rona, whatever, like, that's going to factor into the way people remember the finals. And also, if the final stinks, like some team just gets swept off the floor, like, all right, like, no one's really gonna, like, oh yeah, the Bucks won that championship when X, Y, and Z was going on. Like, no one's really gonna care. And again, it doesn't matter. The ring still counts. Like, you'll still get it. The Larry O'Brien trophy will still go home with you. I mean, that's not going to change anything. Somebody's still going to get the MVP. Still going to be on their basketball reference page. Like, that's not going to change. But just, again, the public perception will be a little bit more skewed if, again, the playoffs is kind of a mess. Like I said, there's people out. Teams are like, if you beat the Lakers in the playoffs and, like, LeBron is out or Anthony Davis is out, all right, that's going to cause people to look at it a little bit differently than if you were playing teams fully healthy. I think that's kind of going to be the biggest thing from the outside perspective. Inside, it's going to be difficult. So, I kind of just wanted to say that because, like I said, I was thinking of it mainly just from a fan perspective, and I still do agree, or I still do believe, that no fans makes it easier in the sense that, like, there's no home court advantage. So, in theory, if you're just playing 5 and one team is better than you, 9 times out of 10 they're going to beat you. Just they have the better players. If it's just a neutral court, no fans, no spectators, nothing to kind of like that could help a team in one direction or the other. Like, if just again straight up basketball, all right, like, there's not, the Lakers should beat a lot of the teams because they're just on paper better. And like I said, you don't have to worry about going in and facing a team that maybe is really good at home, even though you have the better record. Maybe this team is. Like, they feed off that crowd. You don't have to worry about that now. Because there is no crowd. So you're just playing basketball. That's all it is. You're just basketball. So you have a big run, whatever, there's no crushing feeling of, like, you're crumbling under the crowd noise while a team's routing off, like when those Warriors third quarter ones they used to go on. Like, that was aided by the fact that they had fans that were going crazy as it's happening, and you kind of just like all of a sudden you're just like, we can't seem to do anything right. Now, again, teams, like, basketball is a game of runs. Teams are going to go on runs, but it won't have that same effect of just like feeling like the entire world is caving in around you kind of thing. It's just like, all right, we're just playing bad basketball right now. We have to pick it up. So I still agree I still feel that way, that, like, not having fans is going to make it easier from an on the court perspective, but everything else that goes into it, and everything else that goes into even getting on the court, I can concede that, yeah, maybe it's going to be more difficult than we all thought it was going to be. So, like I said, you want to give the players credit. I didn't think of it like that from that perspective before, but I feel like it's kind of wrong to not think of it in that way because, again, even though it's different and weird, that doesn't mean necessarily that it's easier. It's just weird. It's gonna be a weird championship. I will agree there. Like, it's gonna be weird, but just to say like, oh, because you're playing in Orlando, your championship doesn't count. Like, yeah, maybe we're a little too. Maybe we jumped the gun a little bit on that one as fans. I'm not the only one that said that. I've seen a lot of talk on that on Twitter or other things that or other platforms. Just like, yeah, no, it's not. We're not. There's gonna be asterisk next to it, and I'm just like, maybe we should pump the brakes on that just a wee bit. But hey, maybe that's just me. But that'll do it for me here today on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. I want to thank you guys for listening, as always. If you haven't already, which I don't know why you wouldn't, but if you haven't, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top of when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could please as well, give us a 5-star rating, write a nice review. Very appreciated. Very helpful. I'll see what you guys like, what you guys dislike, the ways we can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so you can find us there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. You can talk about why you think this champion will or will not. Because again, there's two sides to this. Will or not have an asterisk. You can talk about whether you would sign a waiver to go see your favorite NFL team or to see any NFL game this year. You can talk about whether you think the Washington football team should change their name. I mean, I feel like it's long past due. But teach his own. You can talk about other people, other athletes that you love to be discussed in the same vein as mine. More obviously, they may not have done the same things, but just like unheralded people that we don't feel like are getting enough attention for what it is they're doing off the court. Because everyone knows about the great people on the court. Everyone knows oh, this person is an MVP or this person's won this many championships, stuff like that. But like when people are using their power and their position and their platform from what they've done on the court and are using it and like allowing it to better people's lives off the court, I feel like that should be highlighted just as much, if not more. Which is why, like I said, I want to take the time out to shout out Maya Moore, because what she's doing is something. I mean, maybe she'll be inspiration for someone, the next person to do this. Be like, you know what? I'm good playing whatever sport it is. Baseball, football, basketball, tennis, golf, NASCAR. It doesn't really matter. Just be like, you know what? I think there's something bigger to my purpose here on Earth than just playing a sport. Like I said, it's possible. Who knows? So maybe, like I said, maybe she'll serve as an inspiration for, or even just like a generation of people in the future. Just be like, you know what? I was going to do this, but now I was going to follow her in the steps and like play basketball or do whatever. But now I'm like, you know what? This criminal justice kind of intrigues me. So I'm going to go into this route. I'll maybe become a lawyer or become a judge or work on criminal justice reform, different things, police reform, prison reform. Maybe that's where your life's going to go. So I said she can provide inspiration in multiple ways. So who knows? But yeah, if you want to discuss any of those things, we're here. I'm here. We can discuss all of them. Again, as I like to do every episode, I'm going to shout out the essential workers, grocery store workers, EMTs, doctors, nurses, firefighters, retail workers, delivery drivers, mail workers, anyone whose job has been deemed essential during this pandemic. Shout out to you. I know, again, states are opening back up, but then stuff's starting to shut back down again because cases are rising, and you still got to go to work. Even amidst all that, you still got to go because your job is deemed very important to society. So with that, you're dealing with people that don't really seem to care about their health, and in turn your health. And then, like I said, the people are agitated, they're losing jobs, their businesses are hurting, stuff like that. So not everybody's in like the greatest mood when you see them. And you got to take it. So, well, mainly if you're a grocery store, people are like working retail or something, I would imagine. No one would disrespect a doctor or a nurse that's going to help them get healthy. But, hey, we've seen stranger things. I mean, again, obviously there's like issues that can happen within a hospital. So I'm not saying everything is just perfect when you go to the doctors, but like you get the point. I feel like a lot of grocery store workers and people like that bear the brunt of society in terms of like you deal with like the people just feel like they can treat you whatever way because you're there, and that's not right. As a person that worked in a movie theater, I understand full and well people getting angry at you for things that are completely out of your control. And yet, they're still mad. And you kind of can't do anything. You can't fight them, you can't punch them, you can't yell at them, nothing, because then you'll lose your job. And you don't want to do that, especially not during a pandemic. So, shout out to all those guys. And just like I said, on the last episode, I've said in the last few episodes, just wear a mask. If you're going to go outside, just wear a mask. It's not that hard. It doesn't really hurt you. You can breathe, promise. Like I said, doctors, dentists, people like that wear masks for hours on end. They're perfectly fine. They come home, be completely healthy. Not infringing on any of your rights, anything to wear a mask. I mean, if you really felt that strongly about it, you'd be in the nude all the time. Because why is it okay for a restaurant to tell you you got to put on shoes or a shirt or wear a certain attire to be able to eat there, but then now if they tell you to wear a mask, all of a sudden, oh no, our rights. It's the same thing. Similar thing. Like imagine if someone walked into a restaurant and they didn't have pants on. You'd be agitated. You'd be like, oh no, we got to kick this guy out. But now all of a sudden where it's a mask, it's my mask, my choice. But then, again, these same people also don't have the same, they're not all just as pro-choice when you're talking about abortion rights and women's reproductive rights. So it's like, it's a little hypocrisy I'm seeing. But that's for another day. But yeah, I've been Chris Blades. That has been my time. And until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.